Today I want to begin with a super simple question. The question is, what's the resurrection? It's a pretty important day, so I figure we better know the answer to at least one question here before we all walk out of the building. What is the resurrection? If I asked you what's the 4th of July, you would be very confident to come up here and talk about freedom, Declaration of Independence, Revolutionary War, easy. But the question is, what's the resurrection? It's pretty fundamental. Think about it. Imagine I'm going to ask you to come up here and say it. Actually think, what would I say if I had to go up there and say something? Many people are going to say, well, Father, I don't know if you're an idiot, but the resurrection is Jesus rose from the dead. Good, great, crushed it. That's one thing. People will say, well, Father, the resurrection, that's Jesus' greatest and most powerful miracle. And I'll say, well, I'll debate you on that because, I don't know if you knew this, Jesus raised several people from the dead, at least 3 that we know of. One of them had been dead for a couple hours, so maybe that was a fluke. One of them had been dead for about a day. That's more serious. One of them was dead for 4 days. So that's 1 day better than Jesus. Technically, that's a better one. That's a better miracle if you're doing the math. It's what's the resurrection? What's the big deal? The proposal since the beginning of our faith, the Christian faith, our Christian proposal, is that the resurrection is the first new thing ever to happen in history. Jesus didn't just come back from the dead. That's happened before. Lame. What happened is Jesus conquered death itself. That had never been done. All those other people that had been raised from the dead, they're still dead now. They died again. That's pretty rough. Have to die twice. They're still dead. Jesus is the only one that has risen from the dead and remains. In other words, he is the one that has conquered death. St. Paul, our patron, in his first letter to the Corinthians, he goes so far as to say the resurrection, it's so important, it's so foundational to everything. If the resurrection didn't happen, our faith is in vain. It's a waste of time. Paul's deathly serious about that. But this is the question. What is the resurrection? Why do we care? It's a very serious question. Why do we care about this? I think it just comes back to that simple phrase, though. Your faith, if it's not real, your faith is in vain. It's that simple. If this is all just a bunch of hooey, your faith is in vain. What does it mean that faith is in vain? What do you hear when you hear that? What do you understand? Again, if I say your faith is in vain, what does that mean? I'm going to give you a great example because I thought of it, so it's great. The example I thought of is many of you have received, or one of your loved ones has received a diagnosis of cancer. Okay. So in this example, what's going to happen? The doctor's going to give you the terrible news, and then the doctor's going to walk you through your options for treatment, often involving surgery, radiation, chemotherapy. For this example, let's say we're going the chemotherapy route. The doctor's going to say, hey, you're not out of the water yet, but there's great hope. Right? This chemotherapy, this new treatment, it's really effective. So you're like, all right, let's do it. So week after week after week, you're injected literally with poison. It's literally making you feel the worst you've ever felt. It's literally making things worse before it's going to make things better, but you keep doing it. Great. This is us putting our faith in something. In this situation, the person has placed their faith in the chemotherapy. They've said, this is a shot. This is a chance that things could get better. Flip it on the other side, though. Let's say you receive that same diagnosis and the doctor starts running you through your options. Let's say you choose the chemotherapy route and you go through all the chemotherapy. But now let's say the doctor is lying to you. And he says, again, you go through all the chemotherapy, injecting poison in yourself every week, feeling worse and worse and worse, and then you die. And then the doctor turns to your loved, this is a dark example, I know, but just give me. Then the doctor turns to your loved ones and says, I knew it wasn't going to work. That kind of chemotherapy doesn't treat that kind of cancer. There's no cure for that kind of cancer. You'd be like, 1, you'd sue him. 2, you'd be like, why did you tell us that then? Why did you make them go through the chemotherapy if it wasn't going to help at all? What a waste of time. What a waste of everything. In that situation, if you had incurable cancer, you wouldn't go through chemotherapy. You would enjoy your last days. You would enjoy the time that you have life, the time that you have left. That's what you would do. This is what Paul means. Okay, when Paul says your faith is in vain, he says our faith, if Jesus didn't rise, it's a waste of time. It's like a chemotherapy treatment that's not going to help us. Why would we do that? And Paul's not dumb. Paul's a lot of things. Paul's not dumb. Paul then says, and if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, well then, quote, this is a quote. I love Paul. Let's eat and drink and be merry, for tomorrow we're dead. It's great. It's like Paul gets it. He's like, if this is all just a bunch of hooey, what are we doing here? Let's get out of here. Let's go have fun, because we're going to die soon. We're all going to be dead. Let's enjoy it while we can. This is going to be great. Let's go have a party. That's what's going on here. This is my point. This is my big point of, like, if the resurrection isn't a real thing, then this is a huge waste of time. Us placing our faith in this is worse than someone placing their faith in a cancer treatment that's not going to work. That leads to the question, though, then what exactly are we placing our faith in? What is it that we're placing our faith in? In the analogy of chemotherapy, you're placing your faith in that drug to help you. So what's our condition? What's the cure for our condition? What should we be placing our faith in? So we're going to play doctor for a second. I know you've always wanted to. We're going to play doctor, okay? What's the first thing that a doctor does when somebody comes in with symptoms of something? Tries to issue a diagnosis. Here's all the symptoms. Here's your diagnosis. After the diagnosis is given, then it's like, all right, well, if this is what you got, this is then the treatment we need to follow. This is what we need to do. Okay, play doctor with the human condition. What is it that we have? What's wrong with us? What's our disease? What's wrong with my heart? What's wrong with our life? What's going on? I'll give you the answer. It's okay. It's not a quiz today. The answer is, theologically, it's what we call original sin, but more simply, it's death. The problem is death. Death itself. We're infected with it. The only thing that you know for 100% certainty, the only thing you know with 100% certainty is you are going to die. That's the only thing that you know. That's the disease that we have. Okay, if that's what we got, if that's the diagnosis, what's the plan? What are we going to do about it? There are two options, and there are only two options. One option, which is very common today, one option is get over it. People die. Fact of life, Father, come on. Hey, it sucks. It's not great, but people die. Get over it. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your life while you can. Do what you like to do. Don't hurt anybody else. Of course not. Don't do that. But enjoy your life and get over it. That's one option. It's a very real option. You can take that option. Many people take that option. Very common. Get over it. Just get on with life. The other option, which is a little less bleak, is to place our faith in Jesus Christ. Why? Because he's the only one that's figured out death. The only one that has figured out the problem to the human condition. So that's the situation we're in. We can choose to place our faith in nothing and just resign ourselves to the fact of death. Or we can place our faith in Christ and in his resurrection. The thing that's going on today, though, is that many and a growing number of people, the majority of people, I would argue, gotta listen, many people are choosing option one, but they're calling it option two. I'll say that again. Many people are choosing option one, this very bleak path of get over it, but they cloak it in language of option two, of I believe in Jesus. They will say, if you ask them, I could survey everyone in town, and 99% of people will say, I believe in Jesus. I believe in God. Do you believe Jesus rose from the dead? I think he rose from the dead. Sweet. So it can sound like they're choosing option two. But when you then watch their life, and you watch what they do, and how they act, and how they behave, and what they actually believe based on how they're living, you can begin to recognize they choose option one. Let's eat and drink. Tomorrow we're dead. Live it up. Live your best life. YOLO. What's the other phrase? Oh yeah, you do you. That's what we cloak it in. That's how so many of us live. But this looks like a lot of different things. Just a couple examples. Many people will focus their time and their energy and everything on their job and work, and not just to support their family. Their job becomes their life. And if you ask them, they haven't prayed in months. Many people will sacrifice their time and energy and their weekends and all of their free time and even sometimes their own marriage at the pursuit of their fifth grader's football career. They haven't been to church in years. Many people will tell you, Father, I'm just so busy. I just don't have time for anything else. And in the busyness, the first thing to go is not the too many things that you're doing. The first thing to go is God. We'll ditch that first. All right. 70%, I've told you this before, 70% of Catholics here in Rice County go to church between 0 and 1 time a year. Many of them haven't been in decades. And then, again, if you ask them, they'll tell you, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, I'm a good person, and they are good people. They're very good people. But then if you watch their life, you notice, you actually believe option 1. You actually think this is all going to come. I know this can sound like I'm being judgy. I'm not trying to be judgy. It's Easter. I'm not being judgy. I'm trying to help us understand the situation that we're in. Because it breaks my heart, because what I see people doing is I see people just walking steadily towards what we see all over of anxiety, of depression, of loneliness, and of death. And they just keep walking that way, and it breaks my heart. It's the stats that I hate to quote, but I love that they paint the picture for us. They help us to understand. Here in Rice County even, beautiful heart of America, why is it that our communities continue to fall apart? That schools continue to fall apart, that families continue to fall apart, that marriages, that kids' lives continue to fall apart. Why in the bestest country in the entire world, America, why in the bestest country in the entire world does our life expectancy continue to drop? We're dying sooner and sooner and sooner. Why? This is the best country in the world. Everything's great here, right? Why is everyone dying sooner? It's not because of a famine, it's not because of a pandemic, it's not because of war. The reason we're dying sooner is sociologists point this out. This is not my opinion. This is atheist sociologists point this out. We're dying because of despair. People are dying sooner and more often because of the 3 deaths of despair. People are dying more because of deaths related to drugs, because of cirrhosis of the liver, that's alcohol, and because of suicide. I don't think any one of us in here has not been affected by at least one of those. And then the one that really gets me is it's really going after our kids. Between 10 and 14-year-olds, the second leading cause of death right now is suicide. And this hits very close to home because they just did the survey over in the high school. Here at Lions High, heart of America, the survey says 50% of high school kids have seriously contemplated suicide in the past year. What's wrong? What's going on here? This is the best country in the world. We're living our best lives. Why is everyone's life falling apart? What's going on? Okay, what's going on is that we continue to believe this lie, that option 1 is going to get us somewhere, and it's destroying us. Today, in a particular way, I want to speak to people, the people here today that are only here today, and I'm not talking about our visitors. Welcome to the visitors. I'm talking about our people that live here, but I don't see you. I know this is a big no-no. This is the big faux pas. This is the one thing Father's not supposed to do. But I just felt really called to do this today and just to speak to you. We're all supposed to pretend like we see you every Sunday, but I know we don't. What's going on? Okay, just on behalf of the parish, the simple message is that we miss you and that we love you. Like, I know that many of you have struggles. I know that many of you have struggles when it comes to the church. Okay? I know that many of you think it's a waste of time. I know that many of you think that, well, Father, I'm a nice person, and I don't need church to help me be nicer. I'm a nice person. I know you're good people. I really do. Okay, I know that God has left you feeling betrayed, some of you. I know that our community isn't perfect. I know that homilies have been boring and music hasn't been great and church is boring. I get it. I really do. But I also know, and it can feel like this is chemotherapy that's not working. I get it. But the reason that we miss you and the reason that my heart breaks is because I know I know where path one goes. And I know it doesn't go anywhere good. I know the busyness in your life. I know that it can feel like purpose. I know that when you just take your kids everywhere and when you just keep living that way, you can feel like something good is going on in life because you're busy and things are going on. I know that even though you believe in God and you believe in Jesus, I know you do, and I know that you're good people. I know that there's that emptiness inside, that no amount of work and no amount of sports and no amount of Chiefs Super Bowl titles and no amount of your kids winning a state title and no amount of any of that is ever going to fill. It's not like those are bad things, but I know that it's not going to fulfill that. I'm simply saying that there is another option, right? And it's this yes to Christ, to following him, to placing everything into his hands, because he's going to give us infinitely more than we could ever ask or imagine. Like, I've literally staked my life on that. I could have done something, like I staked my life on that. I believe that to be so true. And so my simple invitation is just to come home. We're not going to judge you. We want you back. Friends, my simple message is, what if we actually lived with our faith in Jesus Christ and in his resurrection? What if we actually believed it? Okay? And not just believe that it happened, but believe that it actually changes everything. That's Paul's point. If the resurrection didn't happen, our faith is in vain. It's a waste of time. But Paul's point is, it did happen. Jesus did rise from the dead. And so there's a new option for us. We can place our faith in something else. We don't have to keep living option one. It's a dead end. We can begin to live with this newness of life, this newness of faith in Christ. The resurrection is the promise that death is no longer the end. Finally, there's a new story. Finally, there's something that we can believe in. Finally, there's hope. And that's the hope that changes everything. The way that the Christians live this since day one is week after week after week they gathered. On the first day of the week, the day that we call Sunday, every week they would gather to rekindle that hope that was given to them on that original Easter day. That day they gathered. They said is the day we cannot live without. Why? Because that's the day that something new finally happened. A new hope, new faith was given. And it was given to them, a faith was given to them that would never be in vain.